Welcome. My name is Damon Brown. This is Bring Your Worth TV. Thank you for tuning in over at YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, Meta, whatever they're calling it today, you might be watching on X, Twitter. Man, it's such an amazing, intense time. I think about time in kind of quantum leaps where there's nothing and then there's everything. I feel like we're kind of in that kind of time zone, which is why I wanted to make sure I did the show today. I'm an entrepreneurial coach. My name is Damon Brown. My main thing is helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. I am one myself. I did two startups, bootstrap both of them, while being a stay-at-home dad to my wife and I's first son. Ended up selling my second company around the time that our first son turned two. And that journey really helped me understand that there are so many of us who are trying to do unique things, trying to do different things. And that's what Bring Your Worth is about. Bring Your Worth TV is on Wednesdays and Sundays. And we're taking a little bit more leisurely since the beginning of the year. A lot of personal stuff going on, spending time with family, working behind the scenes. If you get my free newsletter at joindamon.me, you'd already know what's been happening behind the scenes. Be sure and subscribe. It's totally free. The links are all below for everything that I'm talking about. But the show is live on Wednesdays and it's recorded / edited, polished show on Sundays. You can look forward to more of those. If you're new to the program, this is episode 370, which means there's 369 other episodes to watch. You can watch them all for free. You can subscribe using that link or clicking below. If you're on Amazon, you can always follow me on Amazon as well. And all this is free for you, helping you level up as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. My complete Bring Your Worth collection. This guy is heavy. Woo. This is a thick book. I think it's like 600 pages. I don't know. Excuse me. But it is almost my complete business selection over the last 7 years. We're talking the original Bites as Entrepreneur, which y'all made a bestseller. Thank you. We're talking about Bring Your Worth. Again, the eponymous name, of the TV show. I think that's the right word. Correct me. I got 2 degrees in journalism. I always forget what eponymous means. And Build From Now, How to Know Your Power So Your Abundance Nourish the World. My personal favorite. They're all in here, including a little bit of bonus content. Be sure and grab it. As you'll see on the links, you could actually watch it, the audiobook version of it, and a little bit of animation on Bring Your Worth TV for free. You go and click right there, watch it. The audiobook's like 9 hours. Perfect for doing a long walk. I do a lot of traveling and got the little kids and all that. So we'll do a lot of road trips. Perfect for that kind of thing. There's a little bit of cursing in there, so you might want to be careful with the kiddies, but you definitely know the vibe. For all the things that I'm featuring today, particularly on Amazon, as well as the links that I have on here, they're all going to be audiobooks. That's kind of the energy as far as talking about these types of books. Excuse me. And you can catch me outside. Catch me outside. I'm not going to do the meme. You can relax. All right. So you can join me at Moxie. The link is right there. Moxie is short for democracy. And it is the first platform that I know of is actually agnostic, nonpartisan, whatever term you want to use. I like agnostic. It sounds way more official, even though I know it's not the correct term. But it's nonpartisan. And what it does is you go into the app, and there's folks like myself who are sharing information that are related to politics, or really my energy is the legal system and government. I just did a post on there about a week ago where I talked about a new law that's being considered by the Department of Justice. In fact, I think they're looking to pass it by early March. I want to say March 11th, maybe March 5th. You can click on my link on Moxie and find out. But my whole point is that it would actually dramatically change how freelancers and independent business people like myself do business across the country. And the short version is that people would have to become employees of the clients that they work for. If you're independent like me, that sounds like a nightmare. There's a reason why we're not employees of certain things. These are the things that I'm posting and sharing on Moxie, whether it's videos or in the case of the freelancer independent bill that's looking to go forward in a couple of weeks. That's a text as well as a PDF and a link to the actual bill that's being passed. This is the information that we need, particularly this year. What I like about Moxie is that it actually gives you the information based on where you're at. So I'm based in Las Vegas. So I open up Moxie, it gets the location information, which of course you get permission for. And then it'll say who my Congress people are. It'll say who's my Senate representatives. Of course, it'll say who the mayor is, and then all the way up to, of course, the president and the vice president. But all that's available in your fingertips. And more importantly, when you click on it, it also will go ahead and say this particular senator who's representing your state or your district voted this way on this. And then you can click on that information of that senator and find out where they're getting their funding from. Here in America, because I know a lot of y'all are international, welcome. Here in America right now, though, we're actually going to be having the presidential election in November. And I'm recording this on February 21st, 2024. So we elect a president every 4 years. This is one of those years. And it's already looking, man, just look at the headlines. Check out the Washington Post, even check out the BBC for you guys that are over in the UK. And there's American politics that are making headlines now internationally, as well as, of course, the wars going on in the Gaza Strip, as well as the wars going on in the Ukraine. It's a crucial year. Get involved in some form. A lot of us are independent. Excuse me. The amount of traditional jobs I've had, I can count on one hand. The amount of W-9s that I've had. I've been independent for a long time. The challenge with being independent, though, is that sometimes we don't know when we should get involved. There's one of those cases where you can't just put your head in the sand, especially if you're an American and you're of voting age. You can't put your head in the sand. Even if you're not of voting age, or if you're not eligible to vote because of prison or other types of things that might not be fair, but that's kind of the way the law is built, you have an opportunity to get involved with your voice. Moxie gives the opportunity to do that. You can join Moxie for free using my special code, my link right there, and that gets you access to everyone on Moxie, not just me. 60 days for free, and then you go and choose whatever plan you like. I think the lowest plan at this moment, I want to say, is $5, something like that, $5 a month, which in this election year, I would sign up. So that's why I got involved. If you know my work, you know I don't get heavily into the politics. Even though I have strong opinions, but I don't get heavy into that with the work I do. But I do get heavy into ways to protect you and keep you informed. We have to know what our governments are doing. Hopefully the Moxie conversation is part of that. Click the link. Check it out. There's going to be some exclusive content in there, as well as some good stuff that I can't wait to share with you guys. Excuse me. Last Friday, which is one of the reasons why I have a weak voice, we had a great panel. Monetize your reporting. You're reporting through self-publishing. It's through the Institute of Independent Journalists, aka freelancers and other folks who are building things on their own. You know, it's a bootstrapping aesthetic. The IIJ is founded and led by Catherine Lewis. Shout out to her. Thank you for having me on the panel. It was a great, lively discussion about, it was myself, actually the founder of Moxie, shout out to Cesar, you know, as well as Neda Sandoval, who's actually a very accomplished journalist coming from Colombia and then, Honduras, and then doing other work. Amazing stuff. What I loved about our conversation is that we all gave practical tips as far as making money independently with your reporting. It could apply to you being a journalist. I think it also applies to you being a creator. If you're doing independent stuff, you want to check this out. IIJ, I don't know how long they're going to allow this replay to be free, but right now the link is on there. You can check it out right now. It's like an hour plus conversation. Definitely worth your time, particularly when you get to the Q&As. It gets fascinating. Speaking of IIJ, I'm going to be involved. Excuse me. I'm going to be involved in their upcoming conference. It's coming really soon, February 29th, which is it 2.5 weeks from now? Something like that. Oh, actually, a week and a half from now. Oh my gosh, it's creeping up fast. There's going to be all stars there, major people from CNN, New York Times, Axios, and so forth. The keynotes are looking right too. Click on the link, check it out. You can learn more about the conference. And I believe the early bird, almost said early bird special, I'm thinking of Denny's. The early bird pricing, I believe, ends on February 26th, which I believe is on Monday. So you don't have much time to go and get in there, check it out. I don't know. It's virtual, but I don't know if there's going to be a cap. And like I said, I'm going to be involved. Excuse me. I'm going to be involved. So you're going to see me popping up in a couple of things. You might be pleasantly surprised. I look forward to surprising you guys as we come through. All right. Today's show, Tough Times, Read These. I think it really applies to where we're at right now, where it might just be me. Feel free to jump in the comments. There's a level of stress and desperation that seems to be elevated in the investing markets and in the economic markets here in the United States. They have something called the Fear and Greed Index, where fear is one side where people are afraid to do anything, and greed is on the other side where people think that they can invest in anything and it's going to go to the moon. I'm sure that index is swinging way over here. If we have the equivalent of that for the emotional intensity, I think part of it is again the aforementioned wars that are happening. Shout out to my brothers and sisters who are suffering right now. I know some folks who are being impacted by both of the wars, particularly the one in the Gaza Strip. So blessings to y'all. Um, as well as the stress, speaking of Moxie, the stress with the upcoming election. So the election years here in the United States, and I think in most areas, tend to be a little bit anxious just because we don't know where the leadership is going to go. And with the two leading candidates right now that we know of, they have two very, very different styles. So we don't know, again, what it's going to look like from 2025 to 2028. So there's that part of it. Also, too, and again, shout out to my brothers and sisters who in journalism who are having such a tough time. And I'm a journalist, but I have so many other things that I haven't been impacted by all the layoffs and challenges that have been happening. I know people personally who have been laid off and they have major positions. I'm talking like they're basically in the C-suite and they got axed. Like some amazing intense time. When we're going through tough times, it's really important to anchor ourselves and remember who we are. And these books that I'm recommending, again, all these are audiobooks, so you can listen at your leisure. Suddenly I'm British now. You can listen at your leisure. These books will hopefully help you on that particular journey. let's get into the questions. And if you're having a tough time right now, or if you've been through a tough time, feel free to jump into the comments and share some of your tips or what you're doing. If you're going through a tough time right now, what are you doing to get through it? How are you setting yourself up? Actually see a therapist. And one of the conversations is, what exactly is your support group? Because your support group, the people that are in your corner, even virtually, the people that are in your corner, if things are rough, then they can help hold you up. And you have someone, a shoulder to cry on and talk to. If times are good, you have someone to celebrate with, which is kind of the point of having those relationships. So either way, that support network is so important. Feel free to jump in the comments. Let me know what you might be going through. Or if you don't want to share that, talk about how you were able to figure out your best tip as far as getting through a tough time. Because again, I can definitely relate to some of the stuff that y'all are going through. All right. So a really important question is, how do I accept where I am? It's so key and it's contradictory. Excuse me. It's so key and it's contradictory, which is, that's what makes it hard. When I was younger, I was afraid of accepting where I was just because I felt like that was an admission or an acceptance from the universe to go and say, "Oh yeah, I'm cool. Yeah, I'm in a ton of pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever. But I'm cool." I thought that was accepting where I am, you know. And some of y'all might still feel that way. Even some of y'all that I coach, we've had those conversations. What I've grown to learn and understand is that accepting the way things are is actually the first step to making things better. If you accept where you are, then you actually have a more realistic view of how you're set up, what resources you have, those people that have your back. Because without that, it gets a little bit more difficult. I'd say the best thing you can do as far as accepting where you are is recognizing how much you've grown. So the person I was exactly a year ago, I remember where I was a year ago, and particularly the person I was 2 years ago, I barely even know that person. Not that I don't like that person or like I've changed 100%, more that I've grown so much in the last year that even though things aren't great right now or aren't perfect, it still gives me a place to say, oh, it's still better than before. And if it's not better than before, then that's also okay too. Because what we're talking about is not the external circumstances, but who you are as a person. Which leads to the second part. It's also a matter of recognizing and focusing on how you show up. That's the part you can control. Just having a conversation where with every single relationship, you can't control what the other person or the group or organization does at all. Like you don't have any control over that. They have the equivalent of free will. What you can do though is determine how you show up. And as the old saying goes, it takes two to tango. So if you show up in a different way, or more importantly, if you show up as your best self, then you have this unique opportunity to elevate everyone. And if the people or organizations, what have you, aren't elevating to where you're at, that doesn't mean you need to kick them out or kick them to the curb, blah, blah, blah. It just means that you're showing up a certain way. And at a certain point, they're going to recognize that you guys are not at the same frequency. There's wonderful, wonderful people, people that I consider good friends. And there was times where it's just like, oh yeah, that's done. And it wasn't because, oh, okay, get out, you're not my friend anymore, or whatever the case may be. It was more that, wow, we're not on the same wavelength. And so it doesn't make any sense anymore. And so if you worry, for lack of a better term, focus on, let's just say focus instead of worry, you focus on elevating yourself, then you're able to get to a better place. And if the people that are riding with you are willing to ride with you, then they'll end up in a better place too. And they have to level up. For those relationships to continue, they have to level up. So if you're going through tough times, part of it is accepting where you are, realizing how much you've grown, and lastly, thinking about it and being more focused on how you're showing up, ideally in a consistent manner. One of my favorite books that I just started reading, that high recommendation. You know who you are, so thank you for the recommendation. Welcome, the Unwelcome by Pema Chodron. If you've been watching any of the 370 episodes of this, you know I rock with Pema hard. I hope you're doing wonderful wherever you are. She is a Buddhist monk, probably, I'm guessing, in her 80s by now. Had a very conventional life, raised here in America, and then something changed, and there was a lot of loss, and she realized that she didn't really, for lack of a better term, have an identity or know her purpose here. And I think she was in her 30s, so she wasn't, a kid. And so she, I think she moved to Tibet and became a monk, and now has talked about created all this great literature. I've done 27 books. I think she's done more than me. So shout out to her. Like, she's killing it. The amount of stuff she's done. When this book got recommended to me, I freaked out immediately because I never heard of this book. And I got like the pocket Pema Chodron. I got Pema Chodron behind me, like total fanboy with it. And so I was excited to go ahead and check it out. I started reading it earlier this week, and I was like, yeah, I need to talk about this. I'm going to share one of my favorite passages from it so far. You see the dog ears coming through. I'm trying not to be too disrespectful and put a pen all over it. I did buy the book. Luckily, it's not a library book. Oh, okay. This is the one. Trungpa Rinpoche, who is a mentor of hers, or was, I think he passed away. The book is dedicated to them. Said that the way to arouse bodhicitta, which I can never say, but it's basically the Buddhist high level of love and understanding, was to begin with a broken heart. Protecting ourselves from pain, our own and from others, has never worked. Everybody wants to be free from their suffering, but the majority of us go about it in ways that only make things worse. Shielding ourselves from the vulnerability of all living beings, which includes our own vulnerability, cuts us off from the full experience of life. Our world shrinks. When our main goals are to gain comfort and avoid discomfort, we begin to feel disconnected from and even threatened by others. We enclose ourselves in a mesh of fear. And when many people and countries engage in this kind of approach, the result is a messy global situation with lots of pain and conflict. And I was hinting at that when I was talking about this being such an intense time. This is a fantastic line that I'll end with. Putting so much effort into protecting our hearts from pain hurts us over and over again. In other words, by us not accepting where we are, who we're with, how things are built, what we're facing, and the fact that we're not comfortable here, not leaning into that discomfort. By not doing that, we're not only are we not we're doing a disservice to others, but we're doing a disservice to ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to have the full experience. So, like, it's been an emotional couple of weeks for me, and I've allowed myself to cry or to be sad or to be elated or to dance with my kids, like just allowing myself to feel those different emotions as we go through this thing called life. I think the important thing is to allow yourself to experience that. But you can't allow yourself to experience that if you're not accepting that you are actually in a tough time and how things are. Because how can you have a vision as far as how things can improve and where you're going to? And how do you even know that you're going somewhere? How do you know things are better if you don't accept the now? This book is fantastic. I'm about halfway through. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. I have not listened to the audiobook yet, but I know she does killer audiobooks, so I would recommend that as well. Speaking of that, 3 ways to grieve a loss. This was also a live show, I want to say about 2, 3 years ago, a little while back. The show's only been on for 3 years. So I guess it was about 2 years ago. And I had someone I was very close to who passed away. And there was some other stuff going on as well. And it felt like a great opportunity to have a conversation and really build with y'all about how we can navigate and grieve things and process loss, because that's kind of how it works. I was talking to my eldest earlier today, and he was talking about death, and he didn't want to talk about it, right? So basically, death that came up, and he didn't want to talk about it. And it's like, no, there's actually nothing wrong with talking about death. We talk about life, and there is no death without life. There's no life without death. Thich Nhat Hanh, who does a great book called No Mud, No Lotus, talks about this extensively. He has a great passage, which actually I quote in Build From Now. And Build From Now, of course, is in the complete Bring Your Worth collection. And how one can't exist with the other. He's way more eloquent, rest in peace to him, but he's way more eloquent about it. But that's kind of the deal. So without that acceptance, it's going to be a hard thing. If we don't accept that our heart is broken or we're having a difficult time, that pain, which is again part of, in this case, the Buddhist teaching, then it's going to be difficult for us to not only process the pain, but also to quote unquote move on from the pain. This is one of my favorite episodes that I've ever done, particularly one of my favorite live episodes. Be sure and check it out if you're having a tough time. Don't miss that episode. I think it's about 45 minutes. It's worth your time. All right, so today we are talking about how to deal with tough times. I'm giving some book recommendations, and all the links to the things I'm talking about are below. If you're watching on Amazon or other platforms, you'll have your little, I must be getting old, I want to call it a doohickey. You have your little doohickey where you click on the links and check it out. Excuse me. And if you're just getting into the program, all the stuff I talked about, including the conference I'll be involved with next week, as well as a replay of the conference I was just at, all the links are below. Be sure and check it out. Yeah. And hop into the comments if you have any tips for people who are having a tough time. I think that's important to share those things. So I think an important question, which we always ask, is how do I get more? So much of our energy is based on a sense of lack. It's like, I got one kid, I want to have two. I got $10,000, I want $20,000. I have this job, but I really want this job. I got 18,000 subscribers here, but I'm really aiming for 50,000. Like, it kind of goes on and on. There's a wonderful theory called the hedonic treadmill. Excuse me, the hedonic treadmill. Please don't ask me to spell it. But it's basically saying that psychologically we're wired to feel normal at whatever level we're at. In other words, if you're making $30,000 last year, and you started making 60 this year, initially you'll be super hype about it, right? But eventually there'll be the so-called lifestyle creep, and then that 60,000 will make you as happy as a 30,000, right? There's been a lot of studies about that. Often we can be so focused on getting more that we end up losing the narrative. If you want more out of your life, if you're like, I live in a dingy apartment, I really want to get a nicer place, or I want to get out of this tough time and move on to something else. One of the best things you can do is actually creating habits as opposed to thinking about the lack. Thinking about the lack and what you don't have puts your focus on the things that you don't have, right? So lots of ups and downs lately for me, but I got a beautiful house, beautiful kids. I got y'all. I'm chilling. Those are things that other people would kill for. So then it's like, all right, if I want more, if I want to create more, if I want to build more, if I want to have more, whatever that more is, then the best thing that can be done is building in those habits that create it. Now I meditate every morning and I have my little routine that I do. And, we got little kids running around, even though they're bigger, but they're still running around fighting and throwing swords, fake swords, and all this other stuff. Usual stuff that you get, when your kids are 7 and 10. But I still make the time to do that daily meditation and squeeze in those habits because I know those habits create that routine, which not only ground me, but also those bigger things that I want our family to get to. I know it's an everyday movement. As Atomic Habits author James Clear says, you should aim to be 1% better every day. So I think I have 101 lives with you guys, which I so appreciate. Ideally, at every single live, I'm getting 1% better as far as me being a parent and being a spouse. Ideally, every day I'm learning a little bit and getting 1% better. If you're having a tough time or in a tough situation, maybe it doesn't make sense to look at the giant overarching, they call it a moonshot, that's going to get you next level and have it be a panacea. Maybe it's just doing that one thing, the incremental thing, and creating habits that allow you to do that. A fantastic book that actually I got from my mother. So shout out to you, Ma. I love this book. Speaking of crying, it actually made me cry. It's a fantastic book. It's called Embers, excuse me, by Richard Wagamese. And I want to say it's one Ojibwe's journey, something like that. But I always forget the subtitle of it. Fantastic book. I got the audiobook. Audiobook is like an hour and a half long. I wish it was longer, which is always a good sign. You always want people to want more. It's a good sign as far as a good book. It's basically about, you know what? Now that I'm talking with y'all, it reminds me a lot of the work of Stephen Pressfield. And I know my man is here because he always stays with me. You know what? I'm actually reading it right now. So yeah, I think I'm reading it right now. But that's also a good sign too, because his books stay in rotation. Stephen Pressfield has a serious catalog, and my favorite book of his, as it is for many of us, is The War of Art. It's kind of like a almost like an inspirational book for creatives, as far as you getting off of your behind and actually doing the work that you know you're meant to do. But you're dealing with something called resistance, capital R, that's preventing you from showing up fully. And that could be fear, that could be imposter syndrome, that could be what have you. What reminds me of how it's related to Embers is that it almost feels like a hidden autobiography, where it's an older gentleman. I'm assuming Richard is probably in his 70s or 80s. Older gentleman who, for the first half of his life, was kind of wandering around. I think that's literally the way they put it. And homeless for a while, figured stuff out. And then he collected all this wisdom along the way. And now, obviously, he has this best-selling book, fantastic book. I look forward to, in my mature years, to be able to write as well as he does. Even with my 27 books, I'm not quite to his level. So, I'll give him the highest praise. And he's a keynote speaker and involved in a lot of different things. Same thing with Stephen Pressfield, where by his own discussion and admission, for I think the first 40 years of his life, he was just kind of lost. And then he actually started pursuing his craft because fear was actually holding him back from showing up as his full self. What I love about the book Embers is that, number one, it gets insight into his particular Native American journey. And it's not super deep into that, but there's enough details where you'll learn something from it. The second thing that I love about it is that it's actually written like a poem. And I don't mean Shakespeare. I mean, like, there's a certain fluidity in the words that he's using in the turn of phrase. And I was actually talking to my mother about it, where I had to text her. I was like, oh my God, I just got to this part. I only been listening for 5 minutes. Like, oh my God. It's what he just said just blew my mind. Like, there's a lot of that. The third part about it, which is why I want to bring it up here, aside from it being an awesome book, is that it also talks about creating those habits, those daily routines, those ways of showing up. And there's a wonderful quote, I want to say from Epictetus, and it says, I'm going to butcher it, but the basic idea is showing me a man's habits and I know who the man is. In other words, what you do regularly is how you show up. If you regularly spend time with your kids, then you're showing up as a particular type of parent. If you're regularly contributing and pouring into the bucket of other people emotionally, then that's how you're showing up. That comes in the consistency. So if you're having a tough time, you're like, I need to get out of this situation. I need more of this. Think about how your particular habits, your routines might help build you step by step towards creating that. I know business wise, connecting with 18,000 of y'all with the show for the first 2 years, it was like a few hundred of y'all. And then suddenly it wasn't. But that came from consistency as much as possible with my two little kids and my partnership and a million things going on. I was still able to do about 400 episodes with y'all. At about 200 or so episodes, 250, suddenly it went like this. That's not because I suddenly, became a genius. I do think I got better, but more importantly, I was consistently getting better and consistently showing up. So I think that's kind of that big gem there, is that if you want to get more or create more from that lack that you're feeling right now, focus on the habits. What are those things that you can control and that you can do consistently? A good addendum to this, or dessert, this is called a dessert. I'm not going to think about the French term, is an episode I did about 2 years ago. Very similar to this one. I talked about books when you're having a tough time. Be sure and check it out if there's more books. I'm only focusing on 3 books this time because I want to keep it focused, and I also wanted to go deeper into each of the books. As you can tell, I'm talking extensively about each of them. This one, I think, has like 5 or 6 books, so it's actually a longer episode. Be sure and check it out if you want more insight. Again, you're watching the Bring Your Worst show. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, here to support you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Bring Your Worst show, Wednesdays and Saturdays, 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Excuse me if I catch my breath. You can subscribe for free right there. It's free and until I'm not Nostradamus, but I think for many years it's going to be free. So get on in and check it out. The water is fine. And today we're talking about having tough times and what books you can read to help you along the way. Now, this is the jam. This is the one. What can I do to build the life that I want? What can I do to build the life that I want? And what I love about this question and this discussion is that it forces us to not only have a vision as far as what life we want, but also forces us to say what we don't have now. Once we determine what we don't have now and what we actually want, then we have this unique opportunity to, if we let ourselves, to actually fill in the blanks. So if living in Italy permanently was what I wanted to do, it's not. I love Italy, but it's not what I want to do. But if that's what I wanted to do, and I say, well, I live in Las Vegas now, I got a wife and 2 little kids and get a mortgage. Like, we're not moving to Italy. Get out of here, right? Then I could just throw it away. Be like, nah, I can't build the life that I want. Never mind. But I took my family to Italy a few years ago. Spent, I think, a week there. something like that. Had a fantastic time. Look forward to going back in the future. And depending on where things financially, where the kids are, and all that other stuff, then it's like, well, maybe we'll spend a few weeks there next time. That's what I mean. We tend to get into trouble or get stuck. That's the word I'm looking for. We tend to get stuck when we're focused on the whole thing. I want to be a millionaire. No, I want to be a billionaire. That sounds fantastic. I wouldn't mind being a billionaire either. That's cool. All right. As long as you do it, which that's a big argument with capitalism, but as long as you do it in legal means and you're actually contributing to the world, okay, I'm up for that discussion. But if you're not a thousandaire and you're trying to become a billionaire, that is, you're probably going to give up because it's way too freaking long, way too far. But if you say, hey, I'm barely a thousandaire, but I want to become 100,000aire, or I want to make a quarter mil, you might have a plan there. And I think that's when we have the toughest time with tough times, no pun intended, is when we actually don't have a plan. Because without the plan, without the structure, at least for me, I can't speak for you, there's no hope. Because it's like, I'm in this situation. I literally have no idea how I'm going to get out of it. So what's motivating me every day? How open-minded am I going to be to solutions? How optimistic and hopeful am I going to be? Probably not vary to any of those, if at all. And so you might be in this rough situation where you are stuck. One of the ways to become unstuck is to actually figure out where you can fill in the gaps. So again, in that situation, you might not become a billionaire right now, but you might be able to put a few thousand away. That's called progress. When you have progress, then it starts to move. Same thing with our relationships. And, I got complicated relationships with some of my family members, even some friends. And maybe it's just a matter of making that first phone call or shooting that text and not expecting healing, but expecting the first step towards connection. When we have that mindset, we have the opportunity to do more. I have a newsletter at joindamon.me. I mentioned it earlier. In fact, I'll go ahead and put it in there. It comes out every, sorry if the link isn't active, but you can just type it in. It comes out every Wednesday morning at 5:55 a.m. I just got my first sponsor for the newsletter like a week ago. So the Wednesday before last, exactly a week ago. It was fantastic. I've had a newsletter for going on decades, but this is the first one where it's like, oh, everything lines up. Great, I have a sponsor for it because part of my passive income. If my goal was to say, I'm going to get a sponsor and I'm going to have a sponsor every week as soon as I start my newsletter, and it's going to bring in thousands of dollars a week, blah, blah, blah. How well would I have persevered with doing this weekly newsletter literally every week for at least a decade? And then I had a more casual newsletter. I think I did once a month. Decade before that, I wouldn't have made it. It reminds me a lot of course, I'm blanking on his name, unfortunately. And if you happen to know, throw it in the comments. But the gentleman that was talking about the people who survived POW camps, and he was one of the survivors, and the people that believed, oh, okay, they were American and they were overseas. I want to say the Korean War. It might have been Korean or Vietnam War, but they kind of overlapped around the same period of time. But let's say the mid to late 60s. And the folks had said, the Americans were like, oh, yeah, we're going to be out by Easter. And then Easter comes, and then they're not out. It's like, okay, well, we're going to be home by Christmas. We'll be eating Christmas dinner with our family. I miss them so much. I miss my wife, but whatever it was. And then that didn't happen. And some of them, it was like years, probably going on a decade. Those folks, from what he said, pretty much died of a broken heart. Speaking of broken heart, but not the healthy broken heart where you feel where you need to be healed, a broken heart as far as you having these expectations and having these expectations so high, and your situation right now is so rough. There's like too much of a gap. He was talking about The Paradox. I still forgot his name, but I don't want to waste time on the show, but you can look it up. Stockfield, I think it's Stockfield Paradox. I might not get the name exactly right, but feel free to look it up. Look up on Google, it will pop up. Maybe I'll do a video about it in the future. Stockdale Paradox. That's the name. Stockdale then found that people who said, I think we eventually will get out, but I don't know when. In other words, accepting, back to the first question, accepting where they are at right now, knowing that they wanted more, the second question, and then finally saying, I know what life I want. I want to be out of this cage and stop getting tortured. I would like to get out of here. I want to go back home. But there's no guarantee I'm going to make it back home. And also, I don't know when I'm going to make it back home, if I make it at all. And you sit with that. That's, shout out to Pema. That's welcoming the unwelcome. That's it. And that's part of the energy that we can bring. If you want to talk more about this type of thing, excellent book. This is a long one. This audiobook is like 7 hours. It's so good. I've listened to it multiple times. Listen, hear what I'm saying. This audiobook's like 6-7 hours. I've listened to it multiple times. And it's like, oh my God, I need to listen to it again. The first time I listened to it, I started it right over again. It's fantastic for walks. Again, I do a lot of driving, so it works really well. Esther and Jerry Hicks talk about how we pull things into ourselves based on what we focus on. Yes, it gets into the idea of the law of attraction, which is kind of like a lot of other stuff over there that's being attached to it. We can ignore that part. What we can focus on is what we focus on. See what I did there? What we focus on actually helps create who we are. It reminds me a lot. There's so many analogies I have today. It reminds me a lot of it's the Batefield Madoff theory or phenomenon. I actually talk about it again in Built From Now. Built From Now is on my mind right now. I talk about that, where if someone says, if you get a new car and it's like a red Volvo, the next day or within those couple of days, you're going to see red cars or maybe even red Volvos all over the place. In other words, the way our brain works, scientifical, the way our brain works is that we notice what we focus on. So if we say, okay, I'm broke as hell, then your focus is on all the ways that money's leaving your pocket. If you say, yeah, I'm broke as hell right now, and also I think there's great opportunities that will come that I'm going to keep an eye out for, then your focus is getting a little bit better, and you're saying, oh yeah, I have my eye out for opportunities. And I've been independent for decades. We'll put it like that. You see the gray hair. You know what I mean? And that's what the challenge is. Excuse me. That's what the challenge is that with those ups and downs, what exactly are you going to focus on? Yeah, exactly, Carlos. This is so true. The biggest issue for me and others, I'm sure, is knowing, sorry, smoking my candles kill me. This is so true. Biggest issue for me and others, I'm sure, is knowing what you want to focus on. Exactly. So what do you want to focus on? Again, I've had my share of ups and downs. There's always ups and downs. I can focus on the down. You want more of that? Well, no. Yeah, I don't want any more of that. Okay. Like that goes back to the first question. Like the down is here. It's already here. You don't need to focus on it. If you're broke, then you're broke. If you're having issues with your family, you're having issues with your family. Whatever. If you're not sure, then that just, you're right. And you took the words out of my mouth, Carlos. Then that's going to be confusing. Not even from a universe standpoint, which is what the vortex talks about, but also from just you. Like, I'm not even talking about the spiritual aspect. Let's forget all that. If you're like, I'm broke as hell, and all you say is, I'm broke as hell, then somebody could have $1 million waiting for you. Now, you hear what I'm saying. Someone could have $1 million waiting for you, but you're so focused on your empty pockets, look like the Monopoly man with the pockets hanging out, then you're focused on your empty pockets. With the people that I've coached, and thanks for your comments, Carlos. Yeah, when you're confused on what you want to bring into your life. If you don't know, the universe says, okay, we're going to pause it then. Exactly. Exactly. The universe, or even your mind, even just your brain up here, it's not going to know what to focus on, right? It's like it's like you having the TV on, you watching something on YouTube on your phone, maybe you're watching me on your phone or whatever, and you got the radio on too. Like for some folks, they can do that. I don't work like that. I'm very much a monotasker. But then if you do that too much, are you hearing a piece of Jeopardy? Or they say Wheel of Fortune? You know what I'm saying? You listen to Jeopardy, hearing the questions. Are you watching me on YouTube, or you listen to the radio? Like, what are you doing? So figuring out what exactly you want to focus on. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate the comment. And yeah, I hear you for sure. And so this book talks about that. And so eloquently. In fact, me talking about it makes me want to listen to it again. So it says a lot there. Some of the challenges that we end up having are actually from conversations that we are avoiding. That sounds like a very serious bar there, as they say in hip hop. I don't know if I just made that up or if I read that somewhere. After you get to a certain point, you read so many books and stuff, you don't know where you got it from. But whatever I just said, it's true. Those things that that we avoid persist. Joseph Campbell, who the man of the hero of 1,000 faces, and the inventor, or the person attributed to, because it happened before him, the people that we attribute the hero's journey to. Very important mythology there, which connects Star Wars to Stranger Things, to any type of to the Bible, to any type of narrative. There's a certain cycle that happens with the main characters in it. He says, in the cave that we're afraid to go into is where the answer is. In other words, those conversations that we're afraid to have, they actually have the salve. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. They have the salve to heal those wounds. But until we go into that cave, until we have that uncomfortable conversation, until we, again, accept where we are now, build from now, that seems to be the theme of the day, until we start to build from now, we're not going to have those answers. Joseph Campbell knew that. I think Carl Jung, shout out to him, he's somewhere up here, talked about that, well before I was born. This is a regular conversation, no pun intended. If you have to have a difficult conversation, be sure and check out this episode that I have linked. I'm talking about how to have difficult conversations and giving, I think it's like 6-7 books that actually will help you frame that conversation you need to have. I've been married for a minute. Excuse me. I've been married for a minute. I got 2 little kids, stay-at-home dad. I'm independent, so I negotiate contracts all day. Follow up on payments and stuff. If you're going to be independent, if you're going to be married, have a long-term relationship, and definitely if you're going to be a parent, you're going to have to learn how to have difficult conversations. It doesn't have to be a conflict, but it has to be part of your toolbox. Like, it has to be, if you want to have healthy relationships. That's really the question. We know plenty of people that don't do that, but those relationships aren't healthy, or they won't be healthy for long. Check out this episode, get that insight, and go from there. Thanks, y'all, that I can talk today. Ooh, glad to end the episode, because suddenly I am tongue-tied. thank y'all for tuning in. As we talked about, having a tough time and reading these different books. All the links are below. If you're interested in any of these, or all of them, check them out. I linked all the audiobooks because if you're like me, you might be on the go, or it's kind of soothing. The Embers audiobook is fire. So if it's like, I want to get one book and I need to get the audiobook, get the Embers one. Fantastic. And thank you again, Mom, for getting it for me. If you missed the speaking engagement and the panel was on last Friday, there's a replay. I don't know how long the replay is going to be on there. Monetize your reporting through self-publishing. Join me over on Moxie. You can join for free for 60 days. I'm going to be talking about legislation, legal stuff, government decisions that are actually going to impact us as non-traditional entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and solopreneurs. And you can join me the Thursday after next. Sounds like an Ice Cube movie. On the 29th, as well as on March 1st, that Friday. I'm going to be involved with the Institute of Independent Journalists conference. Come through. use my link, and I think you get a discount with the link too. But check it out. I know the early bird actually ends, I believe, on the 26th, which I think is on Monday. See what's going on with that. And yeah, I'm a business coach helping you as a non-traditional entrepreneur, side hustler, solopreneur. And you can catch me most Wednesdays and Sundays, always at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. And you can subscribe for free. Anyway, much love to y'all. Remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.